She was fired on Thursday, not for failing to protect the Constitution, not for defying court orders, not for the 5 articles of impeachment that Congress filed against her, not for the whistleblower she called a disgruntled employee, or the survivors she called theatrics, or the perpetrator names she redacted while exposing victims. She was fired because Donald Trump's base is angry about the Epstein files, because the one issue that has consistently split Trump from his own supporters, the promise that the files would finally expose the powerful, that the truth would come out, that real transparency was coming, turned into the administration's most persistent and embarrassing failure, and Bondi was the face of that failure. So she's gone, and within hours of her departure, the man now running the Department of Justice went on Fox News and told America the Epstein files should not be part of anything going forward. Those are Todd Blanche's words, the new acting Attorney General of the United States, Trump's former personal defense attorney, the man who sat across from Ghislaine Maxwell for 2 days in a prison interview, after which Maxwell was moved from a higher security facility to a minimum security camp in Texas, the man who stood at CPAC last month and boasted that every person who had ever worked on a case involving Trump, over 200 people, had been fired, forced out, or had resigned from the DOJ and the FBI. Not a single man or woman at the Department of Justice, he told the crowd, who had anything to do with those prosecutions. Days later, 3 fired FBI employees sued, citing his exact words as evidence that their terminations were politically motivated and illegal. That is the person who now controls the Epstein files, and his first public statement after taking power was to say the files should not be part of anything going forward. Jesse Waters, the Fox News host, interviewing him, paused when Blanche said it. The host who works for the most Trump-aligned major network in the country, the host whose audience built Trump's base, looked at Blanche and said, "I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that." Even Fox News' Jesse Waters told the new acting Attorney General that he wasn't reading the room on Epstein. Here is what Blanche said the DOJ had done. He said they had released all the files with respect to the Epstein saga. He said he and Bondi had appeared before Congress voluntarily. He said every congressman and senator had been made available to view any document they wanted. Here is what the documented record shows. Roughly 3.5 million documents have been released out of approximately 6 million that the DOJ collected. About half remain withheld. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, which Trump himself signed, requires the release of all unclassified materials. Representative Robert Garcia, the Democratic ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, responded to Blanche's Fox News appearance with one sentence, "This is a lie. About 50% of the files have been released, and per our subpoena, it's illegal to withhold them." "Blanche may think it's over," Garcia said, "but we're just getting started." Nancy Mace, the Republican who submitted the subpoena motion that started this process, responded to Bondi's firing by saying Bondi handled the Epstein files in a terrible manner and made the situation far worse than it had to be for President Trump. She said she welcomed the replacement. Then she warned that the subpoena issued to Bondi for a deposition on April 14th remains in effect. The deposition is in 8 days. Bondi is no longer Attorney General, but she is still the person subpoenaed. Her status as a private citizen does not void a congressional subpoena. Multiple lawmakers from both parties said after her firing that they still expect her to testify. The committee chair said he would confer with Republican members on next steps, which is Washington language for watching to see whether political pressure builds or fades. And here's the question that nobody in that building wants answered out loud. If Bondi was fired because of the Epstein files, and every piece of reporting from CNN, NBC, The Washington Post, and The New York Times says that is exactly why, then what happens when she sits down under oath and is asked about those files without the protection of her title? She no longer has a department to hide behind. She no longer has lawyers on the government's dime. She no longer has a position to protect. She has already been called by Trump a great American patriot who faithfully served. That public praise costs him nothing if she stays quiet. It means nothing to her if she doesn't. The deposition is the moment where all of it, the redactions, the client list that existed and then didn't, the Maxwell transfer, the search histories of Congress members brought to hearings in binders, the 86-page SDNY memo still withheld, the classified documents flagged as pertinent to Trump's business interests, all of it becomes subject to questions under oath, with a transcript that will be released publicly, and the person now responsible for deciding whether the DOJ cooperates with that deposition, whether it produces documents, whether it asserts privilege, whether it does anything to obstruct or facilitate what the subpoena demands, is Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal defense attorney, the man who helped Trump survive multiple criminal cases, the man who announced that nobody who touched those cases was left standing at the DOJ, the man who said on Fox News that the Epstein files should not be part of anything going forward. He is now the Attorney General, and the deposition of the woman he replaced is in 8 days. Waters told him he wasn't sure he understood what people feel about Epstein. The files are still half hidden. The deposition is still scheduled. The subpoena is still valid. And the man running the DOJ just told America to move on.